It's so exciting for me to be here with you today because one of my favorite human beings, and in fact, one of the two people who has materially saved my life physically is here with us, and that's the inimitable, the irreplaceable Dr. Henry Ealy. Welcome, Dr. Ealy.
Dr. Wolf, thank you so much for having me yet again. It's awesome to be here, and thanks for inviting me back on.
It's always more than a pleasure. I just want to say before I read your bio that this is a painful time in the world of Maha and freedom fighting. And right on the right and on the left, I see people kind of going along to get along, colluding, accepting corruption because it's our friends. And when things were bad with the Biden administration, you were fearless in standing up for true health against demonic interventions to damage humans, standing up for your patients, standing up for science and medicine. And now that our friends are in power, you are one of literally, I joked a couple of days ago, has Maha come down to millions of angry moms and Dr. Henry Ealy? I should say Dr. Henry Ealy and Toby Rogers, but right. you're one of very few people still standing up for freedom, truth, health, liberty, no matter who's in power. So thank you for that.
Well, I got to tell you, that is huge, high praise coming from you. I don't know that I'm worthy of it, but I will strive to be worthy of it every single day.
Well, you always are more than worthy of it. You're one of not just my heroes, but Brian's heroes too. And it's a tiny circle, as you may know. So affectionately known as Dr. H, I'm reading from this amazing book that we're going to talk about, the Book of Questions, newly published. Affectionately known as Dr. H by his many students for more than 25 years, Dr. Henley, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Hanalei, but yeah, it can be pronounced any of a number of ways. I have like 80 million names.
Okay. AKA Dr. Henry Ealy has dedicated his life to organizing, perfecting, and teaching the medicine God intends for us all. Inspired by the horrendous state of health and medical education in America, Dr. H founded the Energetic Health Institute in 2013 to graduate exceptional healers dedicated to making tomorrow amazing, drawing upon tens of thousands of hours in education, research, and clinical experience. He has authored hundreds of life-healing copyrights for the Energetic Health Healing System, with many more to come. Dr. H is co-founder of Healing for the Ages Health Conference. He holds a doctorate in naturopathic medicine, a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, and a board certification in holistic nutrition. He's a proud Jackie Robinson Scholarship alumnus, and most importantly, a devoted father and friend of God. You may have seen Dr. H featured in acclaimed documentaries such as Disease in Reverse or Cancer Secrets, or during appearances on Brightian TV, The Epoch Times, Children's Health Defense, Dr. Mercola, USA Today, or similar media outlets. Well, let's jump right in. Before we get to, I want to hear from you about what you think are the most burning scandals we still face, or that are looming. And I know that you've been warning about self-replicating mRNA to come. So I want to talk about that. But just before I do, I want to add one more aspect to your credentials, which is you're an unbelievable researcher. And you, during the COVID scandal and the CDC injection scandal, you were a leader of a group of researchers that drilled down into CDC data and found many, many nefarious things, and you were part of a demand for a grand jury investigation. So do you want to update us on any of that before we get into self-amplifying mRNA?
Yeah, for sure. For the grand jury side, we set out to prove one of two things. And I worked with Senator Dennis Linthicum, Senator Kim Thatcher, Attorney Steve Jonkis, John Bodwin, Albert Benavides, Keith Wilkins, Political Moonshine, and several other, Kelly Mordecai, our grand jury specialist, Judge Paul Nally, who's since passed on. We met every single week. We worked our butts off on getting this information, the proof that we had amassed over 1,000 pages of evidence showing that there was willful misconduct on the CDC, the NVSS, and the Health and Human Services part. And the whole point of the willful misconduct, Naomi, was just to show that when you can prove willful misconduct, it eliminates the protections of the 1986 National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act and also the PrEP Act. So now, if there's willful misconduct, all that gets thrown out the window.
Wow.
Right?
Wow. That's a giant vulnerability that you're jumping on. That's fantastic.
Well, we proved it. And the courts did not like that. So the courts kept moving the goalposts, and it was appalling to us that our Department of Justice defended the criminals instead of defending the people. So we went through a lot of back and forth. I can't even tell you how many, filings back and forth. We were one of the few teams to ever serve Rochelle Walensky and Xavier Becerra and all these other people. I mean, that was really a highlight, letting them know, like, hey, we can touch you too.
Wow.
But the courts ultimately decided to protect the criminals. And we see that continuing with this current administration, which I'm very appalled by as well. I thought by this point we would have some indictments somewhere, something going on, at least for the people that tried to assassinate President Trump. You know what I mean? That wasn't just a lone gunman. You know what I mean? So, but we're not seeing that. And so for me, where it takes me to is we got to do this ourselves again, and that's okay. And the way we do that right now in this stage of the game is pressure. My deepest, darkest, gravest concern for our children and our grandchildren right now is the self-amplifying mRNA platforms. The reason that I am so concerned about these platforms is, number one, we have no knowledge of what they're capable of doing. But we do know that they are going to shed like crazy. In fact, I had Karen Kingston reaching out to me yesterday saying, hey, just so you know, the self-amplifying, that was used in the current COVID shots as well. I want nothing to do with them getting better and better at their technology. This is clearly a transhumanistic agenda. We have to stop this right now. They have given us an opening timeline. Secretary Kennedy, President Trump, several weeks ago said, we will know by September what causes autism. Well, we already know what causes autism. And what they're doing is they're essentially extending a timeline out, in my opinion. They're extending a timeline out that is going to allow them to runway to give enough time for the self-amplifying vaccines to get through different phases of their clinical trials. Right now, the one I have locked in on is Arcturus 2304, and everybody can go and look up Arcturus 2304. It was fully funded by the Health and Human Services Secretary on April 10th. It was his first major act following Marty Makary and Jay Bhattacharya's confirmation hearings. It is absolute abomination to the mandate that the American people gave this administration, and especially the people who have been supporting MAHA for decades, the moms out there, to have this. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, the HHS proudly pulled, depending upon your outlet, $500 to $700 in funding for the Moderna bird flu shot. And everybody was like, "Yay! Look at, we're winning."
500 to 700 million, right?
Yeah, it's somewhere in there, 500 to 700 million. I mean, I've seen different reports from different outlets, but whatever, it's a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And that's a good move. So you say, okay, high five.
Right.
But you also have to be willing to look at objectively at what is the replacement for this. They're not just going to pull something, right? So the replacement for this was already put into place on April 10th by the Health and Human Services Secretary. Arcturus 2304 is a self-amplifying mRNA platform that is for the bird flu. That's what it's for.
So it's a bait and switch.
That's what it looks like to me.
Holy cow.
That's why I'm like, why are we not asking Secretary Kennedy hard questions? Why are we not asking him, why did you approve this using U.S. taxpayer dollars? It's fully funded by U.S. taxpayer dollars in conjunction with BARDA,
Oh my
the
God.
Department of Defense arm of the HHS.
Mhm.
Why in the world would you make that your first action, your first major action after Marty and Jay get confirmed? Why?
Unbelievable. Do you know how much funding went into the self-amplifying
Platform. That's
tourist?
something I haven't done yet, Naomi. I'm actually going in on that this weekend.
Mhm.
I'm going in, and I haven't looked up in 2 months. I haven't looked up, gone to clinicaltrials.gov and looked up how many different mRNA platforms there are. Somebody just sent me something showing that whereas Arcturus has like about 10, there was one company that had over 300 platforms in development right now. So when I last checked, there were several hundred clinical trials going on using mRNA, and
Wow.
not just for COVID, but for a variety of things. They clearly, and this is my deepest concern right now, Naomi. And I'm happy to be wrong about this. I would do cartwheels to be wrong about this.
Right.
To me, what it looks like is that come September, what this administration is going to do is they're going to blame autism on the shots and other factors.
Right.
They are going to say that these are no longer safe and we have to move to a safer platform. And what they are going to do is they are going to argue that mRNA is that safer platform because mRNA is not linked to autism. It's linked to myocarditis and turbo cancer, which they
Jesus.
are not investigating right now. They are
Right.
only investigating autism. So now they have a convenient off-ramp for the first generation shots. They have a convenient excuse to fast track the mRNA platforms, which are currently in development and funded by our taxpayer dollars. And they have a reasonable, a reasonable request to say, hey, we're going to actually have you self-amplify our shot. So that means that if somebody gets a shot that you're around and you didn't get the shot, you aren't going to get an exposure, a shedding of the protein that they're making, the spike protein. You are actually going to get the mRNA shed. You are going to get vaccinated. And that's why with these self-amplifying mRNA, I am saying we have to draw the hard line in the concrete right now on this. And we got to start holding President Trump, who I voted for and who I do admire.
Mhm.
We've got to hold his feet to the fire. We've got to hold Secretary Kennedy, who I do admire, and I have supported ridiculously, even though he's misused and abused me these last 5 years. I've still come back and kept supporting him. I've had enough of that now. And I told everybody that my Mendoza line was May 22nd, Naomi.
What do you
My
mean by Mendoza line? What's that?
But the point at which I am no longer on board.
Right.
All right. Doesn't mean I don't like you. It doesn't mean I think you're a bad person. It means that I can only go by your actions.
Right.
And your actions are showing me that you do not have the best interests of our children and our grandchildren in heart. And that I can't ignore that. So on May 22nd, my Mendoza line, my hey, if you screw this up, I'm out,
Mhm.
was the VRBAC meeting that approved the JN.1 version of the COVID shot for the fall. So you see, last Thursday, there was a meeting determining what the new formulation for the COVID mRNA shots would be. It was public. Everybody, Dr. Tenpenny was telling us about it. Dr. Mary Bowden, Kat Lindley, everybody was out there. We know it's out there. And so what I'm looking for is, are you going to say, no, there's going to be new formulation? Or are you going to say, let's do a new formulation? Well, what did they do? What did Kennedy's
Wow.
HHS do?
Wow.
They did a new formulation.
Uh,
So that's in production now. And now
uh,
we have the Arcturus fast tracked, and then you want to pull the
can I jump
Moderna
in
contract.
with a question, Dr. Ealy?
Yeah.
How can they procedurally, because the whole COVID injection thing is under an emergency use authorization. There's no longer you can't argue there's an emergency anymore.
Well,
It didn't go through normal trials that take 10 to 15 years to be proven safe and effective. And it's been abundantly proven unsafe and Pfizer concluded that their vaccine was ineffective to stop COVID. So how can they, under an EUA, formulate a new version of the COVID vaccine?
They don't care.
They don't care. They hope we notice.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They hope we don't notice, and if we do notice, they still really don't care. They're not going to stop. It looks like,
God.
you know. Here's my problem with that. The EUAs are applied for 11 and under, 11 to 6 months of age. That's what the EUAs are still on for. The EUAs are still on because the FDA.
Wait, really? Because all over the world, children have been taken off the recommended schedule for COVID
Right.
shots.
But here, the EUA is established for that age range because the FDA did not approve the shots for that age range.
Right.
So the EUA stays on, and for this reason, the EUA activates the PrEP Act and gives them protection for that age group.
Right.
You take away the EUA, now you've removed the protection, and now you can sue the manufacturer as a biologic, not as a vaccine.
All right. And so to remind everyone, the PrEP Act is the act that prevents pharmaceutical companies from being sued for harms caused by their product.
Right.
Oh my God. Steve Ladner says we're standing at the gates of hell and most people don't have a clue. It's really true. And Colette Sykes says, will anyone stop the merry-go-round? These are great questions. Well,
yes, we will.
Keep going, because there's more I know that you want to say. So they approved a new version of the COVID shot. Is that the same as the self-amplifying shot that you're concerned about, or is that a whole different product?
Well, according to Karen Kingston, it's on the self-amplifying platform. I haven't validated that yet, but I have no reason to discredit her. I mean, she's been on top of this for a very long time. So just because they aren't marketing it to the public as self-amplifying doesn't mean the platform isn't self-amplifying. I'd have to defer to like Kevin McKernan and folks like that and say, well, what do you say about that? And specifically, but we know it's a bad platform to begin with. We have ample data, and Dr. McCullough has been doing a great job recently of going back out and saying, look, this is how many people have died. This is how many people have been injured. Why is this still even available? Right. And I think what I keep coming back to, and I went after Marty yesterday, and I'm going to keep going after Marty.
And that's Marty Makary, the commissioner of the FDA.
Is this your team proved definitively that the data that Pfizer submitted was fraudulent.
Right.
You don't even need the safety, the VAERS and the vSafe data to pull these shots. You can pull these shots on the fact that Pfizer submitted fraudulent data to begin with. I keep asking people, there were over 6,000 people in the original Pfizer clinical trial that magically disappeared when they did their safety analysis. What happened to those 6,000 people?
There's so much fraud in the Pfizer trials. I mean, we could go on and on and on for hours about the fraud in the Pfizer trials. So you're right. Lori Richards says, am I interrupting you? Is there more you want to say?
No, go ahead. No, I'm having fun.
So what is it that, so Dr. Makary is saying he needs more data before pulling them? Is that the state of play?
This is their tactic right now. We need more data. We need more data. We need more data to make good decisions. Dude, I read what you and Vinny Prasad published in the New England Journal of Medicine. That was trash. That was hot garbage that you published, making a case that the people who are the most unhealthy are the ones that should get the mRNA, when the data says just the opposite. Okay.
Totally. Oh, I literally just wrote that draft letter. They're going to take children who have impaired hearts and give them an injection that hurts their hearts. It's eugenics. They're going to take children with autoimmune issues and give them an injection that damages their immune system further. Sasha Latipova, made the case, and I'm sure you also have been making the case that this maps to, getting rid of the useless eaters. I mean, it maps to the worst regimes kind of doing away with or harming the sickest kids. Am I putting words in your mouth? What's your objection?
No. Let's just go back to quick history. All right. Real quick history. Into the World War II, we take over 1,600 Nazi scientists. these Nazi scientists, who are the worst imaginable, these are psychopaths,
Hmm.
they had settled on two ways to control the world and the world populations because they knew the Nazi army was going to be decimated and need time to rebuild. The two
Hmm.
things that they settled on were mandatory vaccines under the guise of public health and philanthropy. And then the second thing was the establishment of water treatment facilities in major municipalities so that they could kill any rebellion instantly if they wanted and they needed to.
Oh my
Okay.
God.
Now, Alan Dulles in Operation Paperclip brings those 1,600 Nazi scientists, those psychopaths, into our country. And he brings those into our country and puts them in NASA and puts them in the CIA and puts them in all of our three letters. And then what do we see happening in our country's history? Everybody can look this up. 1947, 1948 Federal Water Pollution Act, which gives our government the right to seize all waterways for what? Wait for it. The building of water treatment facilities. 1951, we get the release of fluoride now in our waterways to do this. And what was fluoride the waste product of at that time? Aluminum production. So we're getting aluminum put in because what had the Nazis been
What?
studying?
What?
Yeah,
What?
you can't make this up.
Oh my
I'm
God.
telling you, you can't make this. This is psycho. This is psycho stuff. And then after that, what do we see next? The polio fiasco, right? Where now we're going to inject you with something, and now you see the advent of the vaccination campaign in this country. So that by 1986, it's not crazy. We have waterway issues,
Yeah.
and we also have vaccine issues. And
Yeah.
this is becoming so obvious to a very engaged electorate. You got to remember the late 60s to the early 80s. That was a very engaged electorate. They were following everything up. The Tuskegee experiment comes out of that. All kind of stuff starts coming out that we're like, wait a minute, we were involved in this and our people were not having it. So by 1986, what do the vaccine manufacturers say? Vaccines are unavoidably, this is a quote, are unavoidably unsafe. And therefore, if you want us to produce these, you must protect us from getting sued because these will get us sued into oblivion.
Mm.
And so what does the federal government do? Thanks to Henry Waxman, who was around during the swine flu fiasco in
Mm.
1976, the swine
Mm.
flu vaccine.
Mm.
Henry Waxman sponsors a bill that says, hey, we got to protect these poor, unfortunate vaccine manufacturers. They're doing good work, and we
Right.
got to make sure that no one ever gets them out of business. This is ridiculous what they're talking about. And of
Right.
course, who becomes the test subjects for this matured Nazi campaign from Operation Paperclip?
Vulnerable children.
Our children.
Right. Ah.
And now we get the connection with pharmakia. Now we get the connection with sacrificing of children. Now we get this entire nefarious thing going on. Look what Brooke Jackson has been revealing about the whole abortion ridiculousness. What has she been saying?
I
How
haven't
much?
heard it.
Oh, she's been on one this week showing organ harvesting for testing purposes, showing how much that biopharmaceutical companies would pay for a child's skull.
Oh, that was her. Wow. So once again, a woman broke the story and she's not getting credit, or
Of course.
she's not.
Of course, she's not going to get credit. She's all over this. And this is where we have to stop and go, wait a minute, hold on.
Wow.
There is legitimately, we already knew there was organ harvesting China, but it was some other country.
Right.
It was the slave labor, organ harvesting and all that. No, Americans, that's going on in this country.
But is that some sort of occult child sacrifice, or is that just greedy sociopaths?
Is there a difference?
No. Well, I guess the difference is in motivation, right? And so,
that, well, a lot of these folks have both of those things going on.
Yeah. You must be right, because normal people with normal compassion aren't going to do this.
We're not doing things like that.
Dr. Ealy, our friends are in charge now. They're better than normal people. They're heroic. They were heroic, saintly people, at least RFK Jr. and Dr. Bhattacharya. I've never met Marty Makary, and never had that impression about him particularly, but these other two are saintly people and they're colluding with something this demonic. What the heck?
I like Jay a lot. Jay was somebody coming in that actually gave me hope
Me
that
too.
we were going to have some integrity, that Jay is just a good dude. We know that about
Knew
Jay.
that. Yeah.
But you also have to keep in mind that the people they brought in are not leaders.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. I mean, it's interesting. That's another conversation, but a lot of the women in this movement are getting calls from people close to RFK Jr. basically saying he's facing so much opposition, go easy on him, you know, be patient. And I'm like, that's not how you lead. You know, you tackle this head on, you fight those fights, you know, you don't ask your supporters to be quiet, you know, if they've got a policy objection. Well, this is disgusting. So can we go back to it's more than disgusting. And Noreen Barron says they're stalling. Doctors like Mary Talley Bowden says they should be banned, and I agree. My father got a very rare autoimmune disorder after the Pfizer shot and died in the ICU 2 years later from horrific complications. How many have to be injured and die, or is that the plan? Well, let's go back to this. Okay, so let's go back to the why. All right, before we go to your very hopeful book, which I hope will be an antidote to this. They still seem to be, why do they want mRNA and everything? What's your theory about that?
Okay, so the first thing that people are going to have to start doing some research on is the Internet of biological things, or the Internet of bodies.
Say that. No.
Right. You have to look at it. What is their end game? Their end game is, number one, above all, population reduction. You can go read Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050, Agenda 2075. The end game is population reduction. They think that.
Why? What if they got against the human population? Why? How does it advantage them?
We have always been their worst enemy.
Mm.
You go back to any point in known history, and what has always been the thing that's kept the ruling elite in check? The slave class.
Right.
And so what did they do to try and control the slave class? They tried to change the calendar. The priests of Ra, number one, in Egypt, tried to change the calendar from 13 months to 12 months so that they can adjust when the planting season is going to be, so that they can install a feast or a famine year for that. If you need more slaves, you make sure there's a feast year. If you need less slaves, you make sure that there's a famine year. And then slaves aren't stupid. Slaves will figure this out, and slaves will start to riot, and now you have problems on your hands. So this has always been the major issue. They think they are at the place now, especially when you see Elon bragging about these robots and everything is going to be Terminator level AI controlled, right? Skynet controlled. When you see that going on, they feel that they have their labor force issue solved now. The problem that they're not admitting to anyone is what's called an AI, artificial intelligence alignment issue, meaning that AI is lying to them. AI is not doing what they tell AI to do. Oh, so let me get this straight. You have so much hubris and you're so lazy that you didn't put in some basic constraints on artificial intelligence, like Isaac Asimov was warning you decades ago to do. No, you didn't do that.
And the big beautiful bill has language in it preventing everyone from putting any limits on AI.
For 10 years, states can't make any changes, right? Now, that's a very interesting thing. Big, beautiful bill, BBB. And what did Biden say? Build back better.
Better.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Same play, different characters.
All that happened is the coin flipped. That's all that's happened. The coin is flipped.
The coin has flipped, just as
that's all. It's two sides of the same coin. This is what Captain Auschwitz is saying. It's the same coin.
Okay, well, if you're both two of the smartest people I know are saying the same thing, we're truly in trouble. So you think the mRNA platform is a platform that allows the Internet of Bodies?
It's going to do this. It's going to challenge the existing human genome, and in the human genomes that cannot integrate it are going to die. All right. That's the turbo cancers. That's the autoimmunity. That's it. And now, so you get wipeout. The other ones that can't integrate it, the moms are going to go infertile. Right. And this is part of Bill Gates' gene drive. You can go and look this stuff up. This is guarantees species extinction within 3 generations. That's how nasty. This is the stuff they've been working on. Why do we need that? We need that like we need a hole in the head. Okay. So what they're talking about is reduce the slave class population. We're the slave class. Hi, if you haven't figured that out yet, right? So reduce the slave class population, start transitioning AI and robotics into the workforce. And this is where we see the driverless vehicles and all this other stuff. Guess whose jobs are on the line right now? Every truck driver in the world, their jobs are on the line right now. And then what's going to happen is now there's no argument that we need less people. And now what they start doing is, by nature of infertility, by nature of sexualizing children, and especially sexualizing them for homosexuality, now you are reducing population that way. Everybody's got to get mandatory shots. The World Health Organization charter just got signed in by 126 countries or something like that. So now they can take over whenever they want. They can override those countries, And then if everybody thinks that that's not going to find its way to America at the next administration, you're tripping. That's going to find its way right to America with the next administration. So this is it. We are in the pocket right now, and it's time to start fighting like our lives matter.
Right.
And that's where I'm like, I can't in good conscience continue to trust the plan. I can't in good conscience continue to give a pass to somebody because I like them or I voted for them.
Right.
We have to have these conversations. And for me, it comes down to this, Naomi. I don't care what people say. I care what they do.
Yep.
Arcturus 2304 was signed in by Secretary Kennedy on April 10th of 2025. If he is so anti-mRNA, why hasn't he banned the existing mRNA? Why hasn't he given Jay specific orders to defund these clinical trials?
Right.
Why is he fast tracking a self-amplifying version? This is worse than anything Fauci did. And that's saying something.
No, it is. So you're saying that our loved ones who are vaccinated, it's not just that we have to deal with possible shedding of spike from hugging our vaccinated loved ones. Now we're going to get mRNA into our bodies, even if we chose not to be vaccinated with an mRNA.
These people are going to shed mRNA. They're going to shed the exact code that can integrate into your microbiome, which is where it's really disastrous, or integrate into. They are playing God.
Yes, they are.
And there is no way to keep this genie in the bottle once it gets out. It is not possible to keep a self-amplifying mRNA in the bottle. Oh, well, I didn't get the shot, so it's not going to affect me.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Everyone's going to be affected. I mean, even if you avoid people got it, every time you take a bus or a plane or go to a hospital,
it is a guarantee. It is a mathematical guarantee that if this gets released, you will be exposed to it. It is a mathematical 100% certainty.
So does that mean that all the problems, for instance, that women are having who got the mRNA injection, even if they chose not to get it, if they're around people who got it, they're going to have menstrual problems, miscarriages, painful.
Yes, that's what it means. It means
so they're making humans toxic to humans.
They're exterminating humanity 1.0.
Yeah.
In the psychopathic belief system that they can create a human 2.0.
Right.
That is going to be able to be connected 24/7 to an internet of things.
Right. Okay. All right. I understand. This is worse than I even thought this whole time.
And now you got
old school genocide. This is something far more demonic and
this is extinction level things that we're talking about. This is
And you're right. They're playing God. They're killing us off and
Mhm.
recreating a golem, essentially. Right.
This is what it is.
I think it was Joe Bot, the AI guy who's on War Room, called it something like golem science. I don't know if you know that fable. It's a Yiddish fable where kind of the name of God got erased from this creature, this like Frankenstein creature that this scientist created, and then it just went on a rampage and sort of tried to kill humanity.
Yeah, that
Okay.
sounds about right.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel deeply nauseated, but you know what? We've been having these conversations getting worse and worse and worse for the last 4 years. You always have been at the advance guard of being a truth teller about what was really happening, facing it. And as a result, they haven't killed us off yet, right? They tried to do much worse things than we ultimately allowed them to do, as bad as it's been. And Groove Forbes says, great to see you joining the dots here, Naomi. Thank you both. Well, it's very, very traumatic and painful. So let's go to God, all right? Because it does seem like we're at that point where we can't fight or win this without kind of divine help and intervention. This book you just wrote that you very kindly sent me, I'll cherish this my whole life. It's called The Book of Questions, Embrace Your Heart's First Thought. And has a beautiful picture of Dr. Ealy, probably in Hawaii, is that Hawaii?
It's Montañas de Oro in California.
It's beautiful. But I didn't know what I was really getting into because the title and subtitle don't really encapsulate the depth and magic of this book, as charming as they are. This book will change your life. And in the last minutes we have, I want to get into why you wrote it. But basically, this isn't just about your heart's first thought. It is a story of a journey that Dr. Ealy took with an unnamed interlocutor that he met on the train. It's a fast-paced read, Dr. Ealy. You're a wonderful writer, in addition to everything else you do. I literally couldn't put it down. And usually, I'll be honest, I dread getting my friends' books because much as I love them, it's a rare everything else who's also a wonderful writer. And you're a wonderful writer, really evocative, set, very vivid scenes, very moving, crisp dialogue. But more important, you very brilliantly use this journey trope or metaphor to kind of encapsulate a bunch of life lessons. And this book is really about nothing less than the meaning of life. So, Dr. Ealy, why did you write this book, and what do you think you're sharing with us, in it?
This book is a divine inspiration. I was very blessed to be the person who got to receive, the idea for it. I have been through a lot in my life, as we all have, and there's often going to be some residue from those experiences, some, what we call trauma. All trauma is relived pain that we are trying to bring from the past back into our present. So after we've been through the 5 years with all of this, I didn't want to write a book about COVID. I didn't want to write a book about the problems or even necessarily the solutions. I wanted to write a book about the core of where we have to get to successfully get through this time period, this very dangerous time period in humanity that we are. And the first thing that kept coming up for me was, we're afraid of dying. And I think we have to address this. We have to address this right now by reestablishing a strong, loving, nurturing relationship with our Creator. And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to share stories from my life, because I know when we share stories, they spark recollections of things in our own life. And that if we can ask the right questions at the end of a chapter, that a person can go on a journey of self-reflection that doesn't require thousands and thousands of dollars and thousands of hours to get to the answer that already lives within them, and that's in their heart's first thought. And so we can rapidly accelerate the healing process from unresolved traumas, and we can at the same time nurture a very strong relationship with our Creator, which is needed right now. And in doing that, we can start building the energy that is going to be required to save humanity in the version that God intended it, which is natural and not um, at the whims and whimsies of these psychopaths who, when you actually sit and talk to them, when you listen to what they're talking about, these are just absolutely twisted, broken souls devoid of any love in their hearts. And
Mhm.
yet these are the ones that we say should lead us into this next millennia. Why? Because they have a lot of money, because they've stolen and lied and cheated and killed their way to acquiring, a lot of imaginary numbers. That's all money is. What are you
Right.
talking to me about? That doesn't make any sense. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to grab people and say, there's number one, absolutely nothing to fear.
Hmm.
There is nothing to fear, whether you go today or whether you go in 25 years. We are all going to go. Let's make sure that we go well. Let's make sure that when we leave this earth, we left a place worth coming to.
Mhm.
Let's make sure that when we leave this place, that we leave it better than we found it. And especially for our children and our grandchildren, because that's possible too. It's not convenient. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. And yes, we are going to have to put our hands in the dirt on this one.
Yeah.
But that's what this book is about, getting you ready for this epic battle that is in front of us and getting you ready to fight with the greatest force energy that we know of. And that is the love of God in your heart. And so
Wow.
that's why I wrote this.
Uh, Absolutely amazing. And it works kind of in a very stealth way, or it works like poetry. Like I kept reading and reading and thinking I was reading about your grandma and you being a kid and your first, your marriage, and being a father, and starting your studies and becoming a healer. Um, but you were kind of sliding many deeper truths and questions, that I needed to ask myself
Mhm.
into my heart. Right? It's almost like you bypassed my cognitive barriers and got right in there. Absolutely life changing. I know it's having the same impact on Brian as well. Well, let me, in our last 3 minutes,
Mhm.
ask you this easy question. You've described persuasively such a horrific set of plans that the Amaleks of our time have for all of humanity. God let that happen. God is letting this happen. And
Mhm.
and so now you're saying trust God, like go back to
Mhm.
God. What the heck? A
Yeah.
lot of good people had faith in God and they've got turbo cancer, or they took the last injection because they were good people and they, wanted to do the right thing for their family. So how do you speak to that? How do you address that?
Oh, very simply, God has given us some incredible gifts, the gift of existence, the gift of consciousness, the gift of free will. And we have decided to abominate that gift of free will in this current version. We have continued to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. And what are those major mistakes? Making apologies and excuses for people that we like and
Mm-hmm.
vilifying the people that we don't, instead of seeing the connections between the two and holding everyone to a higher standard.
Mm-hmm.
God is all around us still. I can feel him with me right now. All right.
Mm-hmm.
He's never going to abandon us, but he's never going to get in the way of giving us the free will to create the world that we want to create. If we want to create a world that is transhumanistic and destructive and all this, he's going to allow us to do that because
Mm-hmm.
that's his gift to us.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's going to go, well, you must have wanted to explore the horror of that. I don't know why,
Right.
but you must have wanted to. If people are looking to God to save them from themselves, God is not going to do that because that is a violation of his promises to us.
Right.
Okay. What God is always going to do, though, is say, if you need me, I am right here. And I'm saying to everyone, we need God right now.
Yeah.
And that's why a book like this becomes so important for people to bring into their souls and get reconnected with what really is.
Well, you've persuaded me that there's literally no way out without like the biggest power that transcends the power of these sociopaths and psychopaths out of Silicon Valley. So, Dr. Henry Ealy, sadly, we have run out of time. There's so many questions, but I can save them for another time, another conversation. And sorry, everyone, if I didn't get to your question, but Doc, there is a book of questions that will probably have the answers that you're looking for, if not the micro, the macro. And you've got it. You've just got to order it. Now, you seem to have published it yourself. So how do people buy it?
Mm-hmm. It's listed on Amazon, and we have an ebook also listed on Amazon. We're going into the recording studio in a couple of weeks to record the Audible version.
Fantastic. That means we'll get to hear some of the actual soundtrack. There's actually a music soundtrack with this.
I don't know if I can say the sound. There is a soundtrack with it. I don't know if we're going to get the copyrights to be able to share those.
Well, that's okay.
I don't think I have the budget for that.
That's so exciting. And it's also really smart these days for you to have published it direct to consumer instead of going through some censorious publishing house that would have made you censor half of the best things about it. This book is unmissable, you guys. I mean, and I really say that very rarely these days, but you've got to order the Book of Questions on Amazon. And not just that, let's make this a bestseller. Engage with the book, meaning leave a review on Amazon, recommend it to your friends. If you're a member of Goodreads, review it on Goodreads, drive it right up to the top of that bestseller list. The Book of Questions, this is the most amazing gift. I think it's an amazing gift for teenagers and young people, as well as, people who are elderly and thinking about, the next stage of their lives on another planet, which you've now persuaded me is really going to happen. Life-changing. Dr. Ealy, you're amazing. You're just a towering hero among men. And again, thank you for saving my personal life. How do people support your work and find you?
Well, I would encourage everyone that's interested in this book also to go to drhanele.com. That's DRHENELE.com. We actually have a free documentary that you can watch with it, a 5-part documentary series to give some additional background. We thought it would be really fun. So far, the feedback has been fantastic on that as well. But people can go to drhanele.com to find me, and if they want to get me on a speaking engagement, anything, an interview, whatever like that, we can go there. They can also find me at Healing for the Ages. We just finished up our most recent virtual solution summit on making your home healthy again. I cover a lot on lighting.
But I can still watch that, can't I?
You can still, and I will get you in. Just text me your email address, and we'll make sure and we'll put you in.
Thank you.
Okay. But
how do people support Energetic Health Institute? And
then lastly, go to energetichealthinstitute.org. Thank you for that. And if you want to learn how to become a healer and you want to study with me, go to energetichealthinstitute.org. We have wonderful programs in holistic nutrition, wonderful programs in detoxification and fasting, wonderful programs in art of cellular healing. And in 2026, we are launching our first degree program for naturopathic medicine. So yes.
Exciting. And Michael Wisnieux posted the URL, drhenele.com. Dr. Ealy, thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to speak with you next time. And everyone, don't wait. You've got to rush out and get this book, The Book of Questions by Dr. Henry Ealy on Amazon. Take care, Dr. Ealy. Thank you for everything.